Elijah Thompson was 34 years old when he sat in a sterile hospice room and watched his mother take her last breath. He held her hand as the machines went silent, grief splitting him open in ways he'd never imagined. He drove home alone that Monday night, seeking comfort from his wife of 10 years, but the house was empty. At 11 p.m., emotionally shattered, Elijah noticed his wife's iPad glowing on the kitchen counter. A message appeared on the screen from Trevor, his best friend since college, the man who'd delivered a eulogy at his mother's funeral just hours earlier. He just texted me about his mom. You need to wait at least 2 weeks before you ask for the divorce. We can't look heartless. Then we're home free, baby. He'll be too broken to fight. And that settlement will set us up perfect. Elijah scrolled back through months of messages. They'd planned everything: the affair, the timeline, how to divide his assets when he was most vulnerable. What they didn't know was that 72 hours earlier, Elijah had inherited $400 million. And in that moment, standing in his kitchen holding evidence of their betrayal, Elijah made a decision that would destroy them both. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The steady beep of medical equipment filled the sterile hospice room as Elijah Thompson sat beside his mother's bed, his large hand gently holding her fragile one. Dark circles shadowed his eyes after another long day of juggling work and hospital visits. His laptop sat unopened in his bag. There were code reviews waiting, but they could wait a little longer. "Did you eat dinner, baby?" Sarah Thompson's voice was weak but carried the same warmth it always had. "Yes, Mama. The cafeteria had your favorite, that terrible meatloaf you used to make me eat." Elijah managed a small smile, adjusting her blanket with his free hand. "Terrible?" She clicked her tongue. "That meatloaf put you through college, along with about 1,000 postal routes," he said softly, remembering how she'd worked extra shifts to help with his tuition, never complaining once. Sarah's eyes, though tired, studied his face. Simone couldn't make it again? She had a headache. Elijah shifted in the uncomfortable chair. Said she needed to rest. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. 3 years of rest since she quit that paralegal job. Must be nice. Mama, don't start. Elijah sighed. She's just finding herself. Finding something, certainly. Sarah squeezed his hand with surprising strength. You listen to me, Elijah Thompson. Your mama didn't raise no fool. Patience reveals everything in time. Remember that. A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Evening check, Mrs. Thompson. Trevor stopped by earlier, Elijah mentioned as the nurse worked. Said he was sorry he missed you. He had to show a house. Did he now? Sarah's voice held that same careful neutrality. Your friend Trevor. Always so busy these days. Always with a reason. She gripped Elijah's hand again, her gaze suddenly intense. Baby, you need to know who truly loves you. Not who says they do. Who shows it. Mama, you're talking crazy again. Elijah tried to laugh it off, but something in her tone made his chest tight. The machines continued their steady rhythm as evening faded to night. Elijah stayed, watching his mother drift in and out of sleep. His phone buzzed occasionally. Work emails, a text from Simone about having dinner with friends, something from Trevor about a potential client. It was just past 8 p.m. when the rhythm changed. Sarah's eyes opened, found his face. My sweet boy, she whispered. You're stronger than you know. Don't let anyone tell you different. The machines began their awful song at 8:17 p.m. Elijah held her hand as she slipped away, tears rolling down his face as nurses rushed in. Time blurred. Forms were signed. Calls were made. His fingers shook as he dialed Simone's number, straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. Trevor's phone rang 4 times before answering. Hey, man, what's up? She's gone, Trev. Elijah's voice cracked. Mama's gone. Oh shit, bro. Oh man. Trevor's voice rose with practiced concern. I'm so sorry. Listen, I'll be right there. Just gotta wrap something up. Don't move, okay? But an hour passed, then 2. Trevor never showed. Elijah sat alone in the now empty room, his mother's absence a physical ache in his chest. The drive home felt surreal. Streetlights smeared across his windshield. Or maybe it was just the tears. He tried Simone again. Still nothing. His house was dark when he pulled into the driveway at 11:45 p.m. No porch light. No welcoming warmth. Just empty windows staring back at him. Inside, the silence pressed against his ears. Their wedding photos smiled at him from the hallway wall. Him in his tux, Simone, radiant in white, Trevor grinning as best man. His phone buzzed. Dinner with the girls ran late. So sorry, baby. I'll be home soon. Love you. Elijah stood in his dark kitchen, feeling the wrongness of it all. His mother's voice echoed in his head. Patience reveals everything. His hand brushed something on the counter, Simone's iPad. The screen lit up with a notification. He stared at it, his mother's words about knowing who truly loves you ringing in his ears. The house felt hollow, wrong, like a stage set waiting for the real drama to begin. Steam rose from the untouched coffee mug in front of Elijah as morning light crept into his kitchen. The clock on the microwave blinked 16 a.m., marking another sleepless hour. His body felt heavy, disconnected, like he was watching himself from somewhere far away. Simone had slipped in at 2 a.m., her designer perfume trailing behind her. She'd kissed his forehead, mumbled, "I'm so sorry about your mom," and disappeared upstairs. No real comfort, no sitting with him, just empty words and the sound of their bedroom door closing. The house creaked and settled around him. Every noise seemed too loud, too harsh. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, her final words about strength, about knowing who truly loves you. The memory made his chest ache. By 7 a.m., Simone rushed downstairs in her workout clothes. "Going to yoga," she announced, grabbing her water bottle. "You should try to sleep, baby. You look terrible." He nodded numbly, still staring at his cold coffee. The front door clicked shut behind her. The drive to work felt like moving through fog. Streets he'd driven hundreds of times seemed unfamiliar. In the office parking lot, he sat in his car for 20 minutes, gathering the energy to walk inside. "Oh my God, Elijah. I just heard about your mom." His team lead, Maria, met him at his desk. "Take some time off. We've got everything covered." "Thanks," he managed. "I just need normal right now." Throughout the morning, colleagues stopped by. Each offered condolences, touched his shoulder, promised to pray for him. He nodded mechanically, barely registering their words. His computer screen blurred as he tried to review code. By lunch, the weight of pretending to function became too much. He told Maria he was leaving early, ignored her concerned look, and drove home in the same fog that had followed him all day. The house was empty again at 5 p.m. Another text from Simone. "Running some errands, sweetie. Don't wait up for dinner. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Love you." Elijah wandered from room to room, seeking something. Comfort? Connection? His mother would have known what to say. Would have sat with him, made him tea, let him talk, or just be quiet. Hours passed. He couldn't eat, couldn't focus on TV, couldn't do anything but sit in the growing darkness, feeling untethered. At 11 p.m., a soft electronic ping broke the silence. Simone's iPad lay on the kitchen counter, where she'd left it that morning. The screen lit up with a message. Trevor's name appeared above the text bubble. Elijah's eyes moved over the words slowly, then again, faster, his brain refusing to process what he was seeing. "He just texted me about his mom. You need to wait at least 2 weeks before you ask for the divorce." We can't look heartless. Then we're home free, baby. He'll be too broken to fight, and that settlement will set us up perfect. The room tilted. His hands shook as he picked up the iPad. No password needed. She'd always trusted him completely. The irony might have made him laugh if he wasn't struggling to breathe. He scrolled back through the messages. Months of them. Years of his life reduced to calculated betrayal. He's so focused on his mom. He doesn't suspect anything. The company equity alone is worth 1.8 mil. Plus, the house, retirement, savings. Once we get the settlement, we can start looking at houses. I can't wait to stop pretending, Trevor. To be with you, for real. 14 months of messages. Plans made while he cooked them dinner. While he confided his fears about his mother's illness. While Trevor borrowed money, claiming business was slow. Screenshots. He had to take screenshots. His trembling fingers moved methodically. Select, capture, email. Select, capture, email. Multiple accounts, redundancy. His software engineer's mind working on autopilot, while his heart turned to stone in his chest. The sky outside began to lighten, gray seeping into black. He sat motionless at the kitchen counter, the iPad's screen dark now, reflecting his hollow expression. A key turned in the front door lock. Footsteps in the hallway. Simone was home. Morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as Simone breezed in at 7 a.m., still wearing last night's clothes. Baby, I'm so sorry. The girls and I completely lost track of time. She dropped her purse on the counter, right next to where the iPad had been before Elijah tucked it away. We were talking about your mom, actually. They're all so worried about you. Elijah watched her face as she lied, studying the practiced concern in her eyes. Hours ago, these same lies would have worked. Now, he saw the performance, the slight tilt of her head, the carefully modulated voice, the way she touched his arm for exactly the right amount of time. It's fine, he said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. I need to get ready for the funeral. Her face shifted to appropriate solemnity. Of course. I laid out your dark suit. Do you want me to call Trevor? He could drive us. The sound of Trevor's name made Elijah's stomach clench. No, I'll drive. The funeral home was all polished wood and muted lighting. Elijah sat in the front row, Simone beside him in a perfectly appropriate black dress, her hand resting on his knee. Every squeeze of supposed comfort felt like a snake constricting. People filled the rows behind them. His mother had been loved. The thought that these betrayers would use her death as cover made bile rise in his throat. Trevor arrived early, making a show of hugging Elijah tightly. I'm right here, brother. Whatever you need. The words were exactly right. The sentiment, pure poison. The service began. Elijah watched everything through new eyes, cataloging details. How Simone dabbed at dry eyes with tissues. How Trevor kept the perfect distance, close enough to seem supportive, far enough not to raise questions. Their careful dance of avoiding eye contact while appearing completely natural. Trevor's eulogy was a masterpiece of manipulation. His voice cracked at all the right moments. Elijah's not just my best friend, he said, gripping the podium. He's the brother I never had. And Sarah, she was like a second mother to me. She taught me about integrity, about loyalty. He paused, wiped his eyes. Values I'll never forget. Elijah felt his aunt's hand squeeze his shoulder from the row behind. If she only knew. The repast at his aunt's house was a blur of casseroles and condolences. Elijah moved through the rooms like a ghost, noting everything. Trevor worked the crowd expertly, the concerned best friend in full display. Near the kitchen, Elijah overheard Trevor talking to his cousin Marcus. Yeah, man, Eli's gonna need us more than ever. I'm gonna make sure he gets through this. The sincerity in his voice was flawless, Oscar-worthy. Evening brought Trevor to their door, carrying beer and takeout. Thought you guys shouldn't have to cook tonight. They sat in the living room, the food untouched. Elijah saw his chance to test them. "I've been thinking," he said, staring at his hands, "about taking some time. A sabbatical, maybe." Trevor and Simone exchanged the briefest glance. "The company, it all feels so meaningless now, you know? Maybe I should simplify. Liquidate some assets. Clear my head." Trevor's pupils dilated slightly. Simone shifted forward in her chair, excitement poorly masked as concern. "What kind of assets are you thinking about, baby?" "My equity stake, maybe. The vacation property we never use." Elijah shrugged. "Just thinking out loud." That could be good," Trevor said carefully. "A fresh start." "Absolutely," Simone agreed quickly. "Too quickly. You need to heal." They spent 20 minutes enthusiastically supporting the idea of Elijah dismantling his financial life. When Trevor finally left, Simone's mask slipped slightly. "You know," she said, cleaning up the untouched food, "maybe you shouldn't make any big decisions while you're grieving. We can talk about all that later." The contradiction was obvious now that he knew to look for it. She wanted control of the timeline, wanted to orchestrate everything according to their plan. "You're probably right," he said softly. "I'm not thinking clearly." Later, in bed, Elijah lay rigid beside his sleeping wife. The ceiling offered no answers, but his mind raced with possibilities. Questions of strategy replaced raw grief. His mother had taught him patience, had taught him to observe, to think before acting. Simone's breathing was deep and peaceful beside him. She slept the sleep of someone who thought they were winning, someone who had no idea what was coming. The brass elevator doors opened onto the 40th floor of Atlanta's premier office tower. Elijah stepped into a world of mahogany panels and leather chairs, the kind of law office he'd only seen in movies. A silver-haired receptionist looked up from behind a massive desk. "Mr. Thompson, Mr. Hayes is expecting you." The waiting area's leather chair absorbed him like quicksand. Modern art pieces worth more than his car hung on walls that had probably witnessed decades of life-changing meetings. Elijah felt small here, out of place in his funeral suit that suddenly seemed inadequate. Bernard Hayes appeared exactly at 10 a.m., tall and distinguished in a perfectly tailored gray suit. His face carried the gravitas of decades in law, but his eyes held genuine warmth as he extended his hand. "Elijah, I've known your mother for 30 years. Her loss." He shook his head slowly. "Come in, son." Hayes's office was a corner suite, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Atlanta. Family photos lined one wall. Children's graduations, grandchildren's birthdays. The other wall held legal degrees and professional accolades. "Please, sit." Hayes gestured to a chair across from his massive desk. "Can I offer you water? Coffee?" Elijah shook his head. "I'd rather just get this done, if that's okay." "Of course." Hayes pulled out a leather folder. "Now, as your mother's executor, I'll need to read through some standard language first." The attorney's voice took on the formal tone of legal proceedings. Elijah half listened, expecting simple details about his mother's modest house and old Toyota. He'd already decided to sell both, donate the proceeds to her favorite charities. Then Hayes paused, setting down the papers. "Before we continue, your mother made me promise something." He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Sandra, could you bring in the video player?" The receptionist wheeled in a small TV on a cart. Hayes inserted a USB drive. "She wanted you to hear this part in her own words." The screen flickered to life. Sarah Thompson sat in this same office, filmed weeks ago. Despite her illness, her eyes were clear and determined. Elijah's throat tightened, seeing her. "My sweet boy," she began, "if you're watching this, I'm gone, and there's something you need to know." She smiled sadly. "Your grandparents were among the first black families to own land in what became downtown Atlanta. Smart people, forward-thinking. They bought when white flight made property cheap, held on when others sold, added more when they could. She leaned forward in her chair. Over decades, through trusts and quiet holdings, our family built something extraordinary. Bernard's firm helped us manage it, protect it, grow it. I chose to live simply because I believed, still believe, that sudden wealth corrupts character. I wanted you to build your own life, develop your own integrity, without this burden or blessing hanging over you. Elijah sat frozen as his mother explained decades of careful wealth management, strategic property acquisitions, and investment growth. Hayes began laying out folders, bank statements showing nine-figure balances, property portfolios, trust documents. "Everything goes to you, baby," Sarah continued. $400 million in total assets. Use it wisely. Remember who you are, not what you have. The video ended. Elijah stared at the dark screen, then at Hayes, then at the documents scattered across the desk. The numbers were real. The properties were real. Everything was real. "The final papers were signed last week," Hayes said gently. "Your mother was determined to complete everything properly. She was lucid until the end." Elijah picked up a bank statement, hands trembling slightly. More money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. His mother had known this while living in her small ranch house, driving her old car, clipping coupons. "Take your time," Hayes said, standing. "I'll give you a moment." Alone in the office, Elijah tried to process it all. The magnitude of wealth crashed against his fresh grief and raw rage about Simone and Trevor. His mother's wisdom, her understanding of human nature, struck him like a physical blow. Hours later, Elijah sat in his car in the parking garage, documents spread across the passenger seat. The afternoon sun slanted through concrete pillars, making the papers glow like ancient scrolls. His phone buzzed for the 4th time. Text from Simone. "Where are you?" "Getting worried." Elijah stared at the message, tasting copper on his tongue. Thursday evening painted long shadows across Elijah's driveway as he pulled in, the folders from Hayes's office safely hidden in his trunk beneath a blanket. The front door opened before he could reach it. Simone stood there, concern etched on her face, concern he now recognized as performance. "Baby, where have you been?" "I've been worried sick." She reached for him, and he allowed her embrace, his arms moving mechanically to return it. "Just driving," he said, his voice carefully modulated to sound exhausted. "Needed to clear my head. Lost track of time." Relief flooded her features. "Of course. That's totally understandable. You've been through so much." She squeezed his arm. "I made dinner. Your favorite pasta." The next morning, while Simone slept, Elijah made his first strategic move. Patricia Okoye's law office occupied a sleek building across town from Hayes's more traditional space. Where Hayes represented old money and discretion, Okoye specialized in sophisticated warfare disguised as family law. "Tell me everything," she said, dark eyes sharp as she leaned forward across her glass desk. "Leave nothing out." For an hour, Elijah laid out the situation, the affair, the texts, the inheritance, his mother's death. He watched Okoye's expression shift from professional interest to predatory focus. "They have no idea about the inheritance?" When Elijah shook his head, she smiled. "Perfect. We'll need documentation. Everything." By Monday, Elijah had assembled a team. The forensic accountant, a methodical woman named Janet Chen, began dissecting 7 years of bank statements. The private investigator, Marcus Webb, started surveillance and background checks. The revelations came quickly. Webb's first report landed Tuesday morning. Trevor Banks was drowning. Credit card statements showed $180,000 in debt spread across 8 cards. His real estate brokerage had filed internal complaints about missing client funds, $50,000 unaccounted for. His license renewal was under review. "He's desperate," Webb explained, sliding photos across Okoye's desk, "looking at potential criminal charges if the brokerage pursues it." Wednesday brought Chen's preliminary findings. "Your wife's been planning this for years," she said, spreading spreadsheets before them. Small transfers started 3 years ago, 47,000 total, funneled to a secret account at Third National. The pattern suggests premeditation. She began stealing long before any physical affair. Thursday's PI report hit hardest. Webb provided high-resolution photos. Trevor and Simone touring homes in Buckhead, holding hands when they thought no one was watching. Mortgage applications listing pending divorce settlement as assets. They'd already picked a house, a $1.4 million new construction with a pool. "They're telling realtors they're getting married in 3 months," Webb said, "already planning the life they'll build with your money." Through it all, Elijah maintained his performance at home. He moved through the house like a ghost, picked at his food, spoke little. When Simone suggested he take time off work, he nodded numbly. Perfect. It gave him more time to meet with his team. Friday evening, he played his masterstroke. Sitting at the kitchen table, coffee cooling between them, he spoke softly. "I think maybe we should try counseling." He watched Simone calculate behind her sympathetic expression. "Are you sure? You're dealing with so much already." "I just don't want to lose anything else right now." He let his voice crack perfectly. "Okay," she said, reaching for his hand. "We can try that, whatever you need." That night, after she went to bed, Elijah sat in his home office reviewing the week's evidence. The PI photos spread across his desk showed intimate moments. Simone laughing at something Trevor said outside a restaurant, their fingers intertwined, a stolen kiss in a parking lot. His mother's photograph watched from its silver frame. "I understand now, Mama," he whispered. Patience. The word felt different now, not a passive virtue, but an active weapon. In just 1 week, he'd laid the groundwork for something devastating. His team was in place, the evidence mounted. His performance was flawless. Monday morning cast weak sunlight through the bedroom windows as Elijah reached for his phone. He dialed his office number, adding a slight tremor to his voice. "Hey, Sarah, it's Elijah. I can't make it in today. Everything's just—" He let his voice crack. "I can't focus." His team lead was sympathetic. "Of course, Elijah. Take whatever time you need. We're all thinking of you." Simone appeared in the doorway as he hung up. Concern painted perfectly on her face. "First time I've ever heard you call in sick," she said, moving to sit beside him. "Let me make you some tea." He watched her busy herself in the kitchen, noting how she checked her phone every few minutes, probably updating Trevor on his deteriorating state. The tea she brought him was exactly how he liked it. Another calculated detail in her performance. "Thank you," he said softly, playing his part. "I just need time." Once Simone left for her yoga class, Elijah's real work began. He connected via secure video call with Patricia Okoye and his trust attorney, Michael Chen. "The inheritance needs to be absolutely bulletproof," Okoye emphasized. "Every document, every transfer, every trust formation needs to show clear separation from marital assets." Chen nodded, fingers flying over his keyboard. "We're creating 3 independent trusts, the first for liquid assets, the second for real estate holdings, the third for future investments. All documentation will clearly establish acquisition after your legal separation date." They spent hours structuring the transfers, Chen meticulously backdating paperwork to align with his mother's passing. By afternoon, $400 million was secured behind legal walls, so high even the most aggressive divorce attorney couldn't scale them. Tuesday brought the meeting with his company's board, conducted remotely to maintain his too devastated to work facade. The board members' faces filled his screen as he delivered his carefully crafted speech. "Given my personal circumstances," he said, voice appropriately strained, "I'm considering selling my equity stake. I need to simplify my life right now." The panic was immediate. Board members exchanged glances. His 25% stake going to outside investors could destabilize everything they'd built. Elijah, the board chair said carefully, "We understand you're going through an incredibly difficult time. Perhaps we could discuss an internal buyout? The company could purchase your shares directly." By the end of the call, they'd offered $2.5 million, well above the $1.8 million valuation. Elijah accepted, but with specific timing requirements. The sale would complete after divorce filing, but before finalization, protecting it from marital property claims. Wednesday arrived with the performance he'd been waiting for. Simone caught him in the kitchen, her eyes already welling with practiced tears. "Eli, we need to talk." She sat across from him, reaching for his hand. "These counseling sessions, they've made me realize something." He watched her deliver her lines, noting every calculated pause, every perfectly timed tear. "We've grown apart," she said softly. "I need to find myself. I want a divorce." The devastation he projected felt almost real. Muscle memory from actual grief twisted to serve his purpose. "What? No, please. We can work on this. I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Especially now, with everything you're going through. But I have to be honest." "Is there?" He let his voice break perfectly. "Is there someone else?" "No. God, no." The lie fell so easily from her lips. "I just need space, Eli. You deserve someone who can be fully present." Trevor's call came right on schedule that evening, his voice thick with false concern. "Simone told me, man. I'm absolutely devastated for you. Whatever you need, brother. I'm here." "I don't know what I'm going to do," Elijah managed, his voice cracking. "Everything's falling apart. You're my best friend, Eli. We'll get through this together." After hanging up, Elijah's face smoothed into blank stillness. He opened his laptop to review the day's PI report. Photos of Simone and Trevor at lunch, planning their next moves. At 11 p.m., his phone buzzed with an urgent message from Webb. New photos attached. Trevor and Simone entering an upscale jewelry store in Buckhead. Through the window, they bent over a display case of engagement rings, hands clasped, smiling. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m., just 3 hours after she'd asked for divorce. Elijah forwarded the photos to Patricia Okoye with a single word: everything. Her response came immediately: "They never saw you coming." Week 3 arrived with the weight of legal machinery. The manila envelope landed on Elijah's desk at work. Divorce papers served professionally, discreetly. Richard Kraft, Simone's attorney, wasted no time launching his opening attack. The demands arrived in aggressive legal language. 50% of all assets, including forced liquidation of Elijah's company equity, immediate vacating of the marital home, and comprehensive financial discovery. Patricia Okoye reviewed the demands in her corner office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. She smiled slightly, more predator than professional. "They're playing exactly as expected," she told Elijah. "Now we appear reasonable, broken even." Her response was masterfully crafted. "Our client is amenable to reaching a swift settlement. Recent personal losses have left him disinclined toward protracted litigation. However, we must insist on complete financial disclosure from both parties as required by court statute." Simone provided her disclosure with confident haste. The document listed her known accounts, credit cards, and assets, but conspicuously omitted the secret account containing $47,000 of marital funds. Patricia added the fraudulent disclosure to her growing arsenal of evidence. As weeks 4 through 6 unfolded, Elijah watched the pieces of his strategy lock into place. Kraft pushed aggressively in negotiations, each demand met with carefully calculated surrender. Simone's confidence grew with each perceived victory. Meanwhile, Trevor's carefully constructed world began crumbling, though he didn't know it yet. An anonymous tip reached his real estate brokerage's compliance department, detailing concerning financial irregularities. The resulting audit uncovered a pattern of misrepresented transactions and unauthorized commission advances. The PI's latest report landed in Elijah's inbox with damning new information. Trevor had approached Simone's mother, Patricia Williams, a retired teacher living on a modest pension, with a desperate plea for help. He'd convinced the trusting woman to loan him $30,000, promising repayment from Simone's upcoming divorce settlement. The documented loan, combined with Trevor's mortgage broker applications listing pending divorce settlement assets, created a clear pattern of loan fraud. Simone and Trevor, drunk on anticipated victory, grew increasingly careless. The PI's photos showed them at restaurants, holding hands across tables. At open houses, Trevor proudly showed friends through their future home. A $1.4 million property he claimed they'd close on once everything's finalized. "Look at this kitchen," Trevor's voice carried clearly in the PI's audio recording. "Simone's always wanted an island this size. In a few months, baby. It's all ours." In Patricia's office, settlement negotiations reached their climax. Richard Kraft pounded the conference table for emphasis. "My client demands $1.2 million plus retention of the marital home. This is non-negotiable." Patricia's counteroffer was delivered with practiced sympathy. "My client offers $800,000 cash settlement. Mrs. Thompson retains her vehicle and personal effects. Mr. Thompson keeps the house." She paused, letting concern color her voice. "He's simply too heartbroken to endure drawn-out proceedings. The emotional toll of recent events, he just wants peace." Kraft conferred with Simone in whispers. The offer was less than their target, but the speed and clean break were attractive. Trevor's voice echoed in Simone's mind from their previous night's conversation. "Once we're married, what's yours is mine anyway. Take it, and let's start our life." They accepted. The court date was set, exactly 60 days from initial filing, the minimum waiting period required by state law. Elijah moved through the days like a ghost, playing his role perfectly while setting the final pieces in motion. Through Patricia, he scheduled a family meeting at her office, timed for 1 hour after the court hearing. The invitation list was precise. Simone's parents, Leonard and Patricia Williams, Trevor's mother, Susan Banks, Elijah's Aunt Sarah, and several mutual friends who had spoken so movingly about loyalty and family at his mother's funeral. Each invitation was personally delivered. "I need to discuss important matters regarding my mother's estate and how it affects people I care about. Please come." It's crucial. One by one, they confirmed attendance, unaware they were the final players in a performance months in the making. The stage was set. All that remained was the final act. The courthouse loomed against the morning sky, its stone facade catching early sunlight. Elijah adjusted his charcoal tie, smoothing the silk against his crisp white shirt. The tailored suit fit perfectly, a stark contrast to the rumpled, grief-worn appearance he'd maintained for weeks. He climbed the courthouse steps with measured steps, each footfall purposeful. Through the security checkpoint, his attorney Patricia Okoye fell into step beside him, her leather briefcase containing carefully organized documents. "Ready?" she asked quietly. Elijah nodded once, his face composed. They reached courtroom 3B 10 minutes early. Simone was already there, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her attorney, Richard Kraft, stood beside her reviewing papers, his confidence evident in his relaxed posture. When Simone saw Elijah, her practiced smile faltered slightly. Something about him was different. The sharp suit, the straight spine, the clear eyes. A flicker of unease crossed her face, but she dismissed it quickly. After all, they had won. This was just formality. Through the courtroom's windows, Elijah glimpsed Trevor pacing outside, checking his phone repeatedly. The sight of his former best friend didn't trigger the expected pain, just cool determination. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Martinez entered, her black robes swishing as she took her seat. "Thompson versus Thompson," she announced, reviewing the file before her. "I understand we have a settlement agreement?" Yes, Your Honor. Kraft stepped forward. The parties have reached an amicable resolution. Mrs. Thompson will receive $800,000 as complete settlement of all marital claims, with Mr. Thompson retaining the marital home. The judge nodded, scanning the documents. And both parties have provided complete financial disclosure as required by statute? Actually, Your Honor, Patricia Okoye's voice cut through the room like a blade. We have a matter that must be addressed before proceeding. She approached the bench with a folder. We've discovered evidence that Mrs. Thompson committed perjury in her sworn financial declaration. She concealed approximately $47,000 in marital assets in an undisclosed account. The evidence was meticulous. Bank statements, transfer records, dates matching perfectly with deposits from joint accounts. The judge's expression hardened as she reviewed each page. Kraft jumped up. Your Honor, if there was any oversight in disclosure, it was purely unintentional. Mr. Kraft, Judge Martinez cut him off. These records show systematic transfers over 3 years. This is not an oversight. Simone's face had gone pale. Her eyes darted to Elijah, who met her gaze steadily. Under state law, Patricia continued calmly, this constitutes financial fraud and could result in criminal charges. However, my client wishes to avoid prolonged litigation. She produced a revised settlement agreement. We propose new terms. Mrs. Thompson receives $200,000 total settlement. No claim to the house or any additional marital assets. She signs a complete release of all claims, or we proceed to full litigation where Mr. Thompson will pursue criminal fraud charges. The courtroom went silent. Judge Martinez looked at Simone. Mrs. Thompson, you have a choice to make. I should warn you that financial fraud in divorce proceedings is a serious offense. If you proceed to litigation and these allegations are proven, you could face not only civil penalties, but criminal charges. Simone gripped the table edge, knuckles white. Her gaze locked with Elijah's again, and froze. The defeated, broken man of recent weeks was gone. In his place sat someone she'd never truly known, with eyes of steel and absolute control of the situation. In that moment, she realized how completely she had miscalculated everything. Her mind raced. $200,000 was a fraction of what she'd planned for, but it was something. Trevor was waiting outside. They had plans, backup plans. They could make it work. I'll sign, she said quietly. The next 15 minutes passed in a blur of signatures and official stamps. The judge's gavel fell with finality. Divorce granted. As they left the courtroom, Simone caught Elijah's arm. Her voice was pure venom. You're pathetic. Enjoy your lonely life. Elijah smiled then. The first genuine smile in weeks. See you in an hour. Patricia's office. Conference room B. Don't be late. Confusion flickered across Simone's face as she watched him walk away, his steps light and purposeful, leaving her standing in the courthouse hallway with her certainties crumbling around her. 1 hour later, the elevator doors opened onto the law firm's polished marble lobby. Simone stepped out first, Trevor trailing behind her like a shadow. Her $200,000 settlement felt hollow now, especially after seeing Elijah's inexplicable confidence in court. The summons to this meeting gnawed at her. They froze at the sight of familiar faces in the waiting area. Leonard Williams, Simone's father, stood ramrod straight in his pressed khakis and polo shirt. Old military habits die hard. Beside him, Patricia Williams clutched her purse with white knuckles, refusing to meet her daughter's eyes. Trevor's mother, Diane Banks, sat alone, her church dress and pearls a stark contrast to her troubled expression. More faces from the funeral filled the space. Elijah's aunt, who had hosted the repast, several church members, close friends. The air felt thick with unspoken tension. A young paralegal appeared. Please follow me to Conference Room B. The large room had the sterile formality of corporate power. gleaming mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A massive screen dominated one wall. At the head of the table sat Elijah, perfectly composed in his charcoal suit. Patricia Okoye beside him reviewing documents. Once everyone was seated, Elijah stood. His voice carried easily, years of engineering presentations evident in his measured tone. "Thank you all for coming. I know you're wondering why you're here." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "Some of you spoke beautifully at my mother's funeral about loyalty, love, and integrity. I wanted you here to witness what happens when those values are betrayed." He nodded to Patricia. The screen flickered to life. Text messages filled the display, dated months back. Simone's words to Trevor: "Once his mom dies, he'll be too broken to fight the divorce." Perfect timing. Trevor's response: "2 weeks of playing supportive friend, then we're set. The settlement will clear my debts and get us that house." More messages scrolled past, detailed plans, cold calculations around Sarah Thompson's death, mock sympathy and secret meetings. Patricia Williams let out an audible gasp. Diane Banks began to cry. Soft sounds of distress breaking the terrible silence. Simone shot to her feet. "You had no right. Sit down." Elijah's voice cracked like a whip. "I'm not finished." Photos appeared on screen. Simone and Trevor touring houses while she was still married. Mortgage applications listing pending divorce settlement as assets. Trevor's massive debt statements. Bank records showing Simone's systematic theft from joint accounts. Elijah turned to Leonard Williams, who had spoken about honor and duty at the funeral. "Your daughter stole from me while I cared for my dying mother. She planned this divorce while I held Mama's hand in hospice." Leonard's jaw clenched, his military bearing cracking under the weight of shame. To Diane Banks, who had embraced Elijah as family: "Your son delivered a eulogy at my mother's funeral, while plotting to take everything I had. He borrowed $30,000 from Mrs. Williams, promising my settlement would cover it." Trevor bolted for the door. Patricia Okoye smoothly intercepted him. "Mr. Banks, stay. We're not done." Elijah began walking slowly around the table, his footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. "You both thought I was weak, broken, easy prey." His voice remained steady, but carried devastating weight. "You were wrong. My mother left me an inheritance. $400 million. The silence deepened. Simone's face drained of all color. Trevor swayed slightly, looking like he might vomit. "You just finalized a divorce that gave you $200,000, Simone." Elijah's words fell like stones into still water. "You could have had a partner, a life, and shared generational wealth. You got 0.05% of what you could have had. Live with that." The room remained frozen, the magnitude of loss beyond immediate comprehension. Leonard Williams stared straight ahead, military discipline warring with parental anguish. Patricia Williams dabbed at silent tears. Diane Banks's shoulders shook with quiet sobs. The weight of betrayal and its consequences pressed down like a physical force, crushing pretense and leaving only the harsh truth exposed in the conference room's unforgiving light. The conference room emptied like a slow tide of shame and revelation. One by one, people rose, avoiding eye contact, their steps heavy with the weight of what they'd witnessed. Patricia Williams paused at the door, her hand trembling on the frame. She turned to Elijah, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Your mother was a good woman. She deserved better than what my daughter did to her son." Without even glancing at Simone, she walked away, her shoulders bent with grief. Diane Banks stood next to Trevor, her church pearls catching the fluorescent light. "I raised you better than this," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm ashamed, so deeply ashamed." She walked out, leaving Trevor standing alone, his face ashen. The friends who had spoken at Sarah's funeral filed past, each face a mask of disgust. One stopped briefly, touching Elijah's shoulder. "Man, your mama would be proud. This took strength." Simone remained seated, her designer blouse wrinkled, makeup smeared from silent tears. As the room emptied, she stood on shaky legs. "Eli," she tried, her voice small. Maybe there's a way." "No." The word fell like a gavel. "You made your choice. Live with it." Trevor opened his mouth, but Elijah's cold stare silenced him. They left separately, broken pieces of what they'd tried to steal scattered behind them. 6 months passed like water washing away dirt, revealing what lay beneath. Elijah channeled his inheritance into purpose, establishing the Thompson Foundation for Hospice Care. The foundation's mission was clear: funding state-of-the-art end-of-life facilities in underserved Black communities. Each facility would provide dignity in life's final chapter, just as Sarah Thompson had lived with dignity despite her wealth. The Foundation's scholarship program for first-generation engineering students flourished. Elijah remembered his own journey, how his mother had wanted him to earn his success. Now he could offer others the same opportunity, with just enough help to open doors, but not enough to rob them of their drive. His aunt moved into a beautiful colonial house in a quiet neighborhood, her garden already blooming. Cousins launched businesses with careful seed funding: a food truck, a daycare center, a small tech consultancy. Each venture built on hard work, not handouts, just as Sarah would have wanted. Meanwhile, the city's karmic wheels turned slowly but inexorably. Simone's $200,000 settlement evaporated like morning dew. Trevor, still drowning in debt, convinced her to invest $80,000 in guaranteed real estate deals that collapsed spectacularly. Their wedding, once planned for spring, shifted to summer, then fall, then became a vague "when things settle down." Simone's studio apartment barely contained her remaining designer furniture. Her legal secretary's salary covered rent and utilities, nothing more. Her father's silence became a wall between them. Her mother's occasional calls were strained, formal things. Former friends stopped calling. Nobody wanted to associate with such publicly exposed betrayal. Trevor's fall was even harder. The Real Estate Commission suspended his license after finding multiple instances of fraud. His brokerage's lawsuit forced him into bankruptcy. Mrs. Williams's suit for the borrowed $30,000 resulted in wage garnishment, taking chunks from his cell phone store manager's paycheck. He lived in his mother's spare room, enduring silent Sunday dinners and mandatory church attendance, where the congregation knew every detail of his shame. They saw Elijah occasionally. The city wasn't that large. Each sighting was a fresh wound. He looked better each time. Tailored suits that weren't flashy, but spoke of quiet success, a calm confidence in his stride. While they aged in dog years, stress etching lines around their eyes, he seemed to grow younger, unburdened. Kayla entered his life like a gentle dawn. The hospice nurse who had cared for Sarah recognized in Elijah the same quiet strength she'd seen in his mother. Their relationship built slowly, naturally, on a foundation of complete honesty. She knew everything: the betrayal, the revenge, the inheritance, and loved him for his character, not his wealth. 1 year after Sarah's death, Elijah stood at her grave. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cemetery as the Thompson Foundation broke ground on its first facility across town. He placed fresh flowers, their scent sweet in the morning air. "You knew, Mama," he whispered. "You knew everything would reveal itself. Thank you for teaching me patience. Teaching me my worth isn't what I have, but who I am." His phone buzzed gently. A text from Kayla about dinner reservations. Walking to his car, he passed a billboard rising against the sky. The Sarah Thompson Memorial Center, opening spring 2025. He smiled, genuinely free. They had thought breaking him would be easy. They never considered he was his mother's son, and she didn't raise anyone who broke. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.